Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today we're going to build on last week's King's Speech and dig into the new government's ambitions to reform the much criticised water sector and drive investment into this vital part of the UK's infrastructure. And it's just 1 week after the delayed release of Ofwat's long-awaited draft determination setting out how much water companies will be allowed to charge customers over the next 5 years. And it looks like an interesting and challenging time for everyone working in the sector. As my guest last week, Alasdair Reisner, Chief Executive of the Civil Engineering Contractors Association, explained, for all the political, financial and environmental pressures piling up on the sector, there is no question that water is set to be one of the big growth markets over the next decade or so, as water companies battle to guarantee supplies, manage flooding, protect against drought and reduce the number of pollution incidents. So how will all this map out for the supply chain? Where are the real opportunities? Well, let's ask someone with their finger on the pulse of the water industry. My guest today is Tom Williams, Non-Executive Director of British Water, the body representing the water sector supply chain, and CEO of Water Technology and Innovation Consultancy, Enebio. Tom, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to chat to you this morning.
Well, Tom, last week, as I say, we saw detail of the new water special measures bill in the King's Speech, which set out to strengthen regulation and begin the work of cleaning up rivers, lakes and seas. I mean, clearly this comes in response to the new government's political desire to be seen as tackling the perceived or actual poor performance of the sector. But in reality, for you, what difference do you think it will make to the way the sector operates?
Well, as the first shot across the bows and the first announcement from the government, certainly we welcome a strong position on cleaning up our rivers, which is in the end what we all want to do, right? It's just what we want to achieve. What difference will it make? Well, I do worry that all the talk of jail terms and more serious actions will make the water companies a little bit risk averse. I work in innovation, so I want to see more innovative nature-based solutions out there and other approaches. And I'd hate to see that opportunity disappear with a return to more conservative, just concrete solutions that are well proven.
Right.
But of course, the devil is in the detail, and we'll find out as we go forward. Speaking to the new water minister and hearing the speeches from the new head of DEFRA, I'm encouraged by what they want to achieve, and I'm right on board with where they want to go with this. So I'll be interested to see what they turn up.
Well, some might say, Tom, that it's really simply a piece of political signalling from a Labour government wanting to be seen to be acting to challenge the water companies and their investor returns-driven business models. I mean, do you see it as partly that, or is it more than that?
Well, of course, the political commentators are going to see this from that point of view, right? And we're right in the middle of a PER 24 negotiation. The draft determination has only been released last week.
Yeah.
And of course, that's part of what goes on in business as usual, right? In the middle of these negotiations. But as an overall approach, I think certainly I'm right behind what they're trying to achieve, and I have more faith that this is going to move forward than maybe some previous strong words.
Right, okay. Well, you mentioned the Ofwat's draft determination there, and that allows water companies to raise the actual amount they charge customers by an average of 21%. It allows a spending package, according to Ofwat, of £88 billion over the next 5 years by water companies. But it's a third less than that requested by companies, and clearly there's, as you say, a lot of negotiation ahead before we reach the final determination in December. But I mean, do you anticipate an investment boom over the next 5 years?
Well, it's obviously a big change, and it's doubling and tripling in some parts, some of the spend. And as part of the supply chain, we welcome that. In the past 15 years, we had the austerity measures first that cut what spending was already planned from PR 9. And then we had a reduction from PR 14, and only really in line with inflation increase from PR 19. So the past 15 years has seen a real cutback in spending on infrastructure in the water sector. And we believe that water is undervalued in the UK. And we've seen some of the inflationary changes in prices around electricity and power and everything all across the board. So this increase doesn't seem massive in line with those things, but certainly we're very excited about it.
Well, no, but I suppose, yeah, if you consider the price that people pay for bottled water compared to the price they pay for it out of their taps, it is very undervalued. But that said, it's also a vital, I suppose, life-supporting resource. So, I mean, that's a difficult debate, isn't it?
Well, it's that balance, because it's not just, of course, the drinking water supplied to you. It's the whole water cycle. And one of the things that we've been quite successful as an industry is at COP in Glasgow in 2021-22, we managed to get a water pavilion included in COP, because climate change is all about changing the water cycle. And as we move forward with resilience, it's going to be really important to make sure that our water infrastructure is fit for purpose.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about resilience in a minute, but just getting back to the politics, I mean, obviously the fact that Thames Water has only got sufficient capital to keep going for another few months, I mean, raises significant and legitimate concerns over the industry's sustainability. I mean, should we be worried about that industry stability?
I wouldn't say so. Of course, I'm not privy to those discussions in the boards of the corporations. But we've seen previous large corporations like Carillion collapse in the building sector, and their jobs were redistributed around the industry, and we carried on. The behaviour of boards of directors and their financial leveraging should not really be the long-term worry of the supply chain and the government. It's the idea that we have companies that are too big to fail. We can't carry on with that, right?
No. So big challenges, big opportunities in the wake of public and political criticism. I mean, is it, in your view, is it a technical challenge, Tom, or is it just a PR challenge that the water industry's got out there?
Well, there's no short answer to those things. Of course, it's both. But on the technical challenge front, we've known for 20 years that we're going to get this increased amount of rainfall, that we're going to see more capacity needed in the network. And we've had a 10% increase in population over the past 15 years. So these are things that we knew were happening, and planning for the long term and planning for the future is something that has been part of a number of companies' long-term horizon scanning. So there are technical measures. The technology is there. We can roll out a number of solutions for this. But then the PR front, and I've been pushing for this for a long time, is we need to start to talk to people about what changes we're making. We can't be the silent industry anymore. We're well aware that the climate is changing. And we're going to have to change and adapt with it. And we've got to take people with us on that journey. And that involves a lot of PR and communication, telling people what we're doing, what activities are going on. And some of the companies are doing amazing things that really the general public are not aware of. But that needs to get more local into communities so people are engaged and bought into the change.
Yeah, and I suppose at the head of that, and what makes that really credible is if those water companies are seen to be part of the solution rather than just part of the problem. Let's talk about some of the opportunities. And we talked about the spending potential. I mean, Ofwat reckons that 35 billion of the planned expenditure reflects the investment needed to reduce pollution, which we mentioned, improve customer service, river and bathing water quality, and delivering greater resilience. It also says it's a trebling of the level of investment that's happened over the last 5 years. So I suppose from the perspective of delivery, can the supply chain actually deliver this trebling?
My first answer is yes, of course we can. We'll do that job. but the reality is that it's going to cause strains, and we can't continue to work how we have in the past. And with British Water as our organisation, we've been pushing for a long time to move away from this almost Stalinistic AMP period setup of 5-year planning spends. And what tends to happen with that is that the whole country works in this cycle of, okay, we're going to spend a couple of years arguing about money. Then it'll be laying out the contracts for a year. And then year 3, 4, we need to deliver everything because it's got to be done before the end of the 5th year.
Yeah.
And that is a big panic. So we have years and years of the supply chain not really doing a lot. And it's like a feast and famine thing. And they're waiting and hanging on and trying to survive. And then all of a sudden it's like, right, we want everything now. We want 20,000 of these delivered next year.
It's a problem for the whole of infrastructure in that, if you're going to meet the 5-year political cycles, you naturally get stuck in these 5-year delivery cycles, which I suppose are better than 1-year delivery cycles, but they're still long-term projects. But in terms of what needs to happen in the water, what is it? What does the investment actually look like in terms of projects? I mean, is it a few new treatment works, or is it a wholesale rethink of the way we manage water? What does this money buy?
Well, and this is a bigger political question than just how we deliver that spend in our current system that I think needs to shift and needs to change. The current responsibility of the water corporations is bound in this piece of, okay, this is what you deliver, and Ofwat do a negotiation and you decide a price on what bit of critical infrastructure you're going to deliver, but it's not considering the whole water cycle. I have the common expression of rain to drain and back again, is we need to think about the whole thing. We need to think outside our silos of, okay, this is being delivered by a local council and a local government. This is being delivered by the Environment Agency. This is being delivered by the Water Corporation, and never the twain shall speak about what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah. So now you're talking about issues which cross a multitude of government departments, a multitude of different industries. Who should be leading this kind of this rethink then?
I feel it's the responsibility of the Water Minister to really step up and be cross-sector in that way. The Water Minister is part of DEFRA as a piece, and certainly within the general public, we had this idea that DEFRA is about farmers. And not about the wider environment. And then we have our climate change minister who is just about the electricity that gets to our house. But we need to reach across the board and bring that together in a way that's a comprehensive water cycle piece. So everybody in that arena is playing to get the same achievements.
Well, it strikes me that what you're recommending is a much tougher regulatory regime, or a different regulatory regime, a regime that actually reflects the challenges that are there in the industry right now.
Yeah, that's it. So as I think is natural when you spend 20, 30 years heading in one direction, things professionalize and drill down into this is the critical things that we're doing, and they don't necessarily lift their head up and say, actually, with the climate change, that's going to affect that, that's going to affect that. So the water we have coming in to our reservoirs in the upland peat bog areas, for example, is affected by the farming activities on that region and the runoff. So that affects the water quality going into our drinking water systems. And of course...
and requires more treatment, etc.
Exactly. And that can... The stuff we've mapped out for rainfall for the future in the next 10 years or 20 years or so, that requires another several hundred drinking water treatment plants just to stay still, not to improve quality, but to stay at the quality we're at the minute.
Well, Ofwat also talks about the need for investment of 10 billion to tackle storm overflows. Again, this is something which, you can talk about building new concrete assets, but what you're actually alluding to is the fact you've actually got to embrace a new systems thinking approach to the way you manage the whole of water.
Absolutely. It has to be about catchment systems thinking, and it's not And I know it's easy to target the corporations because they're very visible. You've got the farming runoff, which is an issue just as much as the water companies, and the road runoff, and we're all responsible for that. And the amount of new road building that's gone on over the past decade, and certainly is planned into the future, the drains from those roads affect our rivers in a very serious way, with some very serious chemicals running off into those creeks and rivers and upstream areas.
Right, yeah. Let's dig in a bit about the role that you play at British Water, because you're a non-exec director of British Water for the last 2 years. You've been involved in the organisation for over 12 years. Just for clarity, what does the organisation actually do? I suppose, whose side in all these arguments are you on? Because you represent the water supply chain. How do you kind of position yourself in this whole debate?
Yeah, so British Water is here to represent the people who offer the services to the water corporations. Water UK represents the interests of those water corporations. Again, we've seen some muddying of these waters, and that we're all the same moving around in an industry. But most people in the water industry, you come into it for a passion for water and a passion for how important and how critical water is as a life source, and how important the environment is. So most people in the industry are amazing, but what BW represents is all those people who are part of the supply chain, serving the corporations. Now, to give you a good example of how that relationship works, because we have a very good relationship with Water UK. We might have a slightly different opinion to things of Water UK. But for example, when the pandemic came around, British Water and our CEO, Lilla Thompson, was just wonderful at making sure all the supply chain got paid, preferentially a bit earlier, so that they could pay their staff to keep them running, to make sure this critical infrastructure was there, because it really is key worker stuff. If your water cuts off, you're in trouble. So making sure that supply is there is really important, and having those negotiations with sometimes quite keen corporate purchasing guys is really important.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned passion for water from people in the industry. I know. I mean, you're based in the Peak District, which I imagine there's quite a lot of water knocking around there.
Certainly this year, there's been lots of it.
But you're also passionate about open water swimming. I mean, is that what fired your original passion for water? Well, tell me about your passions for swimming and water.
Swimming, I've always been a swimmer since I was a teenager. So the two have ran side by side. I was a swim club every Tuesday kind of guy growing up, and I'd always loved the water, going on holiday, getting in the sea, and even I was talking about this at the Innovation Festival in Northumbrian the other week. I used to swim in the canals around Salford when I was a teenager, which was probably
That's brave.
Yeah, exactly. I can show you photos of that. It wasn't a good thing, I remember diving down to get to the car that had been dumped in the canal and stuff. So I've got quite a good resilience on the health front for dirty water and stuff. But that is, you are in the front line of pollution monitoring. The open water swimming community is really a driving force for change in the water sector. Absolutely, and this is the thing, and this is what it comes into is my first water project was my A-level chemistry when I was 18. That was to clean up the Bridgewater Canal in Salford, which I'd been in and had a lot of iron in, and I designed a water treatment system. And I remember going to Northwest Water to get all the samples processed, and it was in collaboration with that water company. And then I went on to be a process engineer because I was into that kind of stuff, and it came into part of the construction world, which was with Costains, and then had a little foray into some other interests as careers developing that way.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the problems maybe is that as a nation, open water swimming is seen in many ways as a bit of a kind of a sport for, you know, a strange collection of folk, rather than people who necessarily are able to make this, you know, this case for change.
And it's often portrayed like that. But, you know, open water swimming, you've got books about it in the UK going back to the 1500s. It really is a passion. And, of course, growing up in the 70s, it wasn't a wise thing to do after the Industrial Revolution and the implications of that. But as our water gets cleaner, it becomes more and more attractive. And it's really important to have those people out there being the eyes and the ears on the environment, seeing what's going on, being guardians of our rivers, really. And you know, there's groups within my region that they do litter picks, you know, and a big shout out to Warren and the team, getting out and pulling tyres out of the rivers and bottles and junk.
As you say, it's a community-based activity, isn't it? It's a community thing. It's supporting your local community, and it's really kind of making your local area a place that people want to go and hang out.
Yeah, it's engaging with nature, right? And engaging with nature is something so important to us. It's so basic in our human instinct to feel calm when we're out in nature.
Well, you have had an interesting and varied career. You alluded to it, and you've done a bit of work around the world, notably China, Australia, Canada, Ecuador. You also spent a couple of years working on logistics for Operation Raleigh in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and then in Borneo. It all sounds very exciting, Tom.
Well, yeah, it's been a great career. I have to say, some of the travels I've had have been very privileged to get around the world, and Borneo particularly. I'm hoping to get back there in the next year or so, because it'll be 20 years since I was based there. And we were working with a community on the Kinabatangan River, and working on some wash solutions and building an eco lodge and preserving primary rainforest there in the jungles of Borneo. And it was such an amazing experience. Little swim in the river there, and we had some of the people trying to cross the river that was a little bit panicky because there was quite a lot of crocodiles in there. So we used to see 2-3 metre crocodiles near the camp.
Not something you get in the Salford Canals or the River Thames, but anyway,
a different risk profile.
You're now chief executive, also in your day job as chief executive of water technology and innovation consultancy Enebio. I mean, what does that business do, and who are your typical clients in the water sector?
So the goal of Enebio is to work with new technologies in the water industry and try and grow them around the world. So we're not particularly focused on the UK, and I always say to water innovators, you know, if you've got a new thing, say you were developing a car thing, you wouldn't go to BMW and say, I want it on all your cars in the next year. You know, that's just not realistic. You have to start small and prove yourself and get some trials going and build out your companies. So over the past 15 years, we've done everything from working with United Utilities in the past on their adoption of technologies, working with operators and how they bring that in, to people like Aquametrology Systems out in California. And we monitored drinking water, trihalomethanes and hexchrome and the lead in about 30 states of the US. We built out that company with them. We also worked with Sentry out of Canada, who do microbial activity monitoring. I've recently been working with Southwest Sensor, that's been invested by a German investment firm who do real-time floating nitrate and phosphate monitoring systems. So we're looking at things of, right, okay, This is the future, and quite often what you have is somebody who's a whiz at inventing something digital, and they say the water industry definitely needs this. So we help them understand actually how the industry works here in the UK and globally, and how they might change their product to meet the requirements of an operator, to apply some chemical engineering to why you want that data and information.
Which is, I mean, it's a fascinating, a new way to look at the whole sector. And I suppose it brings me back to the opportunities going forward in the next control period, because while there's a lot of focus, and there inevitably a lot of focus on, the typical pipes, the concrete structures, the need to invest in biodiversity, sustainable systems, natural solutions to mitigate pollution, but also greenhouse gas emissions, has never been so strong. How do you think the industry will meet this challenge? I mean, obviously, companies like yours will be there helping, but are there other parts of the world, or other industries that it needs to copy?
Well, I wouldn't say copy, but change in utilities is something that happened to the telecoms industry some years ago, and I remember in the 90s that BT was saying, look, you're crazy if you think you're going to replace all the copper with fibre in the UK. It's never going to happen. It's too big. We're too important. And I think everybody knows what happened there is that it's a change of thought and way of doing things.
Yeah, and a business case was created to support it.
Yeah, exactly. And business cases popped up all over the place. There was a dramatic change in the way that our telecoms and TV and media was delivered. And I could see that changing in the water industry. And the idea that we're just tweaking around the edges with the current system and a more aggressive buyer with the current corporation is going to change things, I think is crazy.
No, because I suppose that is one of the problems in it. There's a huge focus on we need to be more efficient. We need to be doing the same stuff more efficiently and effectively. And yes, you need to do that. But there's also needs to be some big decisions and big cultural shifts around the way that we're managing that water, but also the way we're managing demand. We use a hell of a lot of water in the Western world. Possibly unnecessarily.
But yeah, and that goes back to my Borneo experience. I remember with that, we had to carry our water from a spring down to a boat and then 2 kilometers into the jungle. It really makes you think about how much water you need and how much water you use. If you have to carry it 2 kilometers, it makes a real difference. And most of what we're doing, certainly on energy demand, within the water sector, is delivering and taking away that water from people's houses.
And it's heavy stuff. It takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of energy to do all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge, and it's a huge, giant infrastructure. So maybe we need to think about new models for how we do that, new models of reuse, new models of localization, consider the distances that we're pumping water. One of the crazy things that I think is going on at the minute is this idea that we're going to shift water from the northwest of England down to the southeast to supply the future demand of London. And that bakes in huge infrastructure, huge energy costs, huge pumping, and a more distributed system, and maybe some people and companies moving to other regions where the water is.
Which smack of a civil engineering solution to a problem which is slightly more sophisticated than that.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's something that the whole country needs to think about politically as well. Is that spreading across the regions and the distributed water, distributed energy models, so that we have more localization within our communities and more buy-in.
Well, just to close out, I mean, we're moving into the next control period. I mean, what would you say has been learnt from the last control period about how water companies will be working with the supply chain to deliver better outcomes for customers, better outcomes for communities, better outcomes for society?
So I'm very hopeful say one of the things around what happened with the pandemic is that we now have a much closer relationship with the water companies. It's less I'm the big corporate buyer. There is more cooperation on that. So they know that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, there are huge challenges in infrastructure to meet adaptation realities of what we're going to need for climate change. And that cannot all be big concrete solutions. And to deliver that, then we're going to have to be performing year on with what can we do this year? What can we get done? What can we do over 10 years? What can we do over 15 years? And spread that out over time.
We heard last week from the London Resilience Committee, which paints a really challenging picture when it comes to building out our resilience, and water is one of the big issues. I mean, that resilience challenge, I get the impression that you would see that going way up the agenda.
I think it's going to be huge, and one of the big questions for what's going on around Thames is the resilience of London, because it's such a large centralised system and such a large city. It's going to be very, very challenging.
So, I mean, going back to the industry's financial woes, and Tom, I mean, where is it all headed? Where's it all headed in terms of ownership? Could we be seeing a renationalisation of the industry?
No, I don't think it's about nationalisation of industries, and I don't think there's a centralised system owned by a government would be any better than a centralised system owned by a large corporation.
Right. We've been there before. Yeah.
And just because those are the two alternatives we know from the past, it shouldn't be how our future is. And personally, I see much more advantageous setups around localization of communities and building up resilience within communities, rather than here you go, here's a large corporation from outside to the community that you buy in that service.
Yeah. Any advice finally for any business seeing the potential opportunity in water? I'm thinking of getting involved.
I do get involved. It is the critical resource that we need going forward. As much as there's lots of focus on whether we should be having oil and gas and carbon emissions and the like, water is the one thing that everybody needs every single day. So the technology challenge is huge, and the resilience challenge is huge.
Well, Tom, a fantastic point to end on. Really interesting moments for the water sector. And, I think we'll be very interested to see how it all pans out, because the reality is that change has got to happen, doesn't it? It's a huge challenge. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Fabulous. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, change is coming.
Thanks, Tom. Really interesting chat, really interesting and controversial issue. But unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. But we will have more from the Infrastructure Podcast in the pipeline, and more guests to talk to as we continue to probe the big issues faced across the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find background links to some of the issues discussed today and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share with colleagues. So thanks for joining us, and thanks again to Tom. I look forward to seeing you all again very soon.